Welcome to the Supported Living Property Podcast with your host, me, Lisa Brown, the place to learn about supported living property investing. Hi Sam, it's great to have you here today. For people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself and tell people a bit about you?
Yeah, sure thing. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the opportunity to share a bit about what we do. So as you said, my name's Sam Cooper. I'm based in the Midlands. So I like to say, first and foremost, I'm a family man. So I'm a father with two kids and married to Jo. So we've got a girl and a boy. Jacob's now 12, and Isla's just turned 9. So we essentially we're property investors. We have a portfolio based in Coventry. We run a property management business called Coventry Accommodation, and essentially what we're trying to do is we work with heart-led investors to try and find great, suitable, safe, long-term homes for people with special needs. And that's kind of what we're doing in the supported living space. So that's one side of it, and then the other hat that I wear is I help business owners to get their time back from their business, so they can eventually look to kind of either exit or retire from their business at some point in the future. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, I suppose.
Really useful skills on both sides of things. From the property side of things, how did you get into supported living? How did you discover this? What led you down this path?
Yeah, as with most people that I talk to in property, completely by accident. It was first of all, we kind of fell across property by accident, and then a few years later, we kind of fell across supported living by accident as well. So effectively, we'd got a property that was coming up for rent, so we put it with a local letting agent, and they were doing sort of tenant find searches and stuff for us. And they came to us, I mean, I'm going back a few years, but they came to us and said, I don't suppose you'd be interested in, but, and it was kind of almost like they were almost kind of trying to put us off it before they'd even said what it was, and they said, look, we've got this company that we work with. They're a supported living provider. They work with adults with learning difficulties. And they seem to think your property would be ideal for one of their tenants. Is it something you'd be interested in? So I just sort of said, well, tell us a bit more about what it is, and how long do they want to rent it for? Oh, they want it for as long as possible. They'll only sign a 12-month agreement, but they'll probably have it for a number of years. There'll be a carer living with the person pretty much 24/7. They'll take over the responsibility of all the bills and all the utilities, and they've got a small maintenance team that will look after bits and pieces. So I kind of thought about it and went, well, it sounds like a great opportunity. Why wouldn't I do that? So we put the property with them. I think it must have been about 5 years ago, and they've rented it ever since, and it's been great. They've always, I know there's been times when that property's been empty, and they've just carried on. Because our contract is with the company, so they've just carried on renting it from us. I think because they find it so difficult to find good quality properties that they didn't want to lose it. So each time there's a kind of a bit of a gap in between tenants, they cover the cost anyway. So it's been great.
So you've got a property there that you're holding, that you're getting the money from every month for 5 years without any voids, and they're covering maintenance and repairs and things as well, are they, Sam?
Yes, so they'll do most minor maintenance and repairs. So we're kind of still responsible for the fabric of the building, and the things like if the boiler kind of broke, we'd probably end up doing that. But any little bits and pieces, they just kind of tend to sort out themselves. They just they've got their maintenance team that's kind of working around Coventry all the time, so they just nip in and sort anything. But it's been a really good experience for us. So it's been good.
So on the back of that led you to explore this a bit more, did it?
Yeah, so we didn't do anything with them straight away. What actually happened is the property underneath that one, so it's a maisonette, it's a 2-bedroom maisonette, and the property underneath became available, and we knew the person that was living there, so they decided to sell that property. So we had that kind of relationship. We said, look, if you're ever going to sell it, let us know and we'll buy it. So we ended up buying it off the lady, did a bit of a refurb on it, and then we let it to the same company. So we let it to the same supported living company. So so now we've got 2 properties with the same company on the same sort of agreement, really. So it's been really good.
Brilliant, that's great. And so what are you doing in this space now? Where are you going with that now?
Yeah, so it took us it took some, maybe we were just a little bit slow at realizing opportunities, but it took us a little while to kind of get around to it. But in between those, that we went off down a serviced accommodation kind of mission, if you like, or journey, and we still run serviced accommodation today. So what actually happened as it is with properties, people started bringing properties to us and saying, look, could you manage our property for you guys into property? You know what you're doing. Can you find tenants for you? Can you manage property? So we actually we incorporated a property management business in 2019, which with the pandemic shortly after, it probably wasn't the best time to be launching a new business, but hey ho, we survived, so we're still here. So we we went off down the sort of the service accommodation route, which really kind of took our focus off actually what we're kind of passionate about and what we wanted to work in. So, the service accommodation still plays a big role in our business, and I think it will do going forward. But really, our focus now is on, through the property management business, is providing, long-term, safe, suitable homes for families and people with special needs. Really, so that's kind of our focus within the property management business.
And you talk there about special needs because you've got a special interest in that area, haven't you, Sam?
Yes, yeah, we have. So, and like I say, talk about kind of taking a long time to put the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together, but essentially, just our 12-year-old Jacob has cerebral palsy. So he was born 8 weeks premature, and as a kind of a result of that, we realised probably a year after, when he was about a year old, he was kind of missing a lot of his milestones and a lot of his markers, and then eventually he was diagnosed with diplegic cerebral palsy, which essentially means it kind of affects his lower half, his lower limbs. So he's a wheelchair user, and I suppose what that did is it kind of chucked us into a world that we were completely unaware of before having Jacob, and it made us kind of realize actually how difficult it can be, having a member of the family with special needs, and then how inaccessible and difficult it is to find property that would suit their needs kind of going forward. So we've kind of been on a bit of a journey over the past 12 years, and as Jacob grows and gets older, his needs change, and our ability to be able to kind of cope with those needs change as well. So having a property that can adapt and be suitable to those needs going forwards is so critical and so important. So it's kind of given us a link between property, business, and obviously our experience and knowledge of having a child with special needs, so we can sort of see the world through a few different eyes, I guess.
And understanding just how important property is, it's so integral, isn't it, to health, to security, to everything, and you were saying that when we were talking earlier that you ended up struggling to find the right even though you're in the property world, struggling to find the right property for you as a family to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that, just touching on the how important it is, if you looked at the kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's kind of right there, isn't it? Having a safe place, it's almost like one of the fundamental building blocks. And I think it can, when I've spoken to, supported living providers, especially kind of in the, we're working with a particular provider at the moment who has deals with clients that have like high autism needs, and having the right environment for them to live is so critical to their health and well-being, so it plays an absolute crucial role in people's well-being. And from our sort of side as a family, we were living in a 3-bedroom semi-detached house that we'd completely renovated. We'd bought it a few years ago, done what every property developer does, moves in and then completely smashes it to bits and improves it. But we realized actually for long term it was never going to suit Jacob's needs long term. It just wasn't, you could do a lot of adaptations to it, but it just wasn't right. So we when we put the property on the market and decided to sell it, and we just couldn't find anything suitable to actually move into. So what we actually ended up doing was moving into a rented property. So actually rent the property we live in now. So we live in a lovely big bungalow that's kind of on levels. All the levels of open thresholds and all that sort of stuff. Downstairs bedroom, downstairs wet room. But we were able to find that because we've got essentially we've got the rental income coming in from our portfolio, so we could then afford to then go and rent something that kind of suited our needs. But even, like you say, even as a I'm not sure I'd call myself a property expert, but even with somebody that's got experience in the field, it's so difficult to try and find a suitable property for for the long term. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the problem a lot of our providers are struggling with, isn't it? The providers you're having conversations with, certainly all the providers in the network, are really struggling to find the right properties for the people they support. It's a really common thread, isn't it? That people, it's really challenging for everybody. And I think even though we're seeing an explosion in interest in supported living, I would say amongst property investors, particularly with the changes that are coming to the Renters' Rights Bill and everything else, I think people are going, oh, yep, supported living's for me suddenly.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not necessarily the right kinds of properties or the right kind of property people, who understand this and are willing to work with the providers in the way they need people to work with them. There are a lot of challenges in this space, aren't there, as a property investor? What are the sort of challenges you've encountered, Sam, when you've been working with different providers?
I think you've kind of hit one of them there, which is certainly finding suitable property, because there's just a lack of accessible properties. So from bungalows are so sought after anyway. So if you've got somebody that's got they've got movement difficulties, they've got not even necessarily being a wheelchair user, but somebody that just needs kind of a place that hasn't got trip hazards and things like that. So difficult to find those sort of properties out there. And also they're just so expensive as well, aren't they? Compared to bungalows tend to be sort of in, I'd say, probably more expensive kind of areas for some reason. So they tend to be just more accessible and less accessible from a financial kind of point of view. So there's that side of it. The other sort of challenges are then from a so kind of, I suppose, making those then stack up from a rental point of view. So if you wanted to then buy them, and then rent them to a provider, the numbers just don't stack, unless you've got somebody that's got very high care needs, where you can, there's a lot of, there's a lot of income there that you can sort of move around, and it's just a very, very difficult thing to make stack.
Some of the other issues on the stacking thing, I think you're right. I think if you've got people with high support needs, then you can claim those enhanced housing benefits, and you can justify that and build a case for that. But if you've got someone who happens to be a wheelchair user who's fairly independent or has a few hours support needs a week, it's very hard to get those enhanced rents to make those properties stack up, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Those accessible.
And then the experience we've had with being now running a property management company and letting agency, you hear of this kind of blanket ban on no DSS or no no support, no all this sort of
benefits,
stuff. No benefits. We don't accept people that are on kind of benefits or and it's crazy. We hands up. We receive benefits because of what because of Jacob's needs. So we get a disability living allowance. We get help towards kind of mobility. We don't get carers allowance because it's that's another story, I suppose. But it's But what I suppose what I'm saying is that if somebody walks into a letting agent and they're on benefits because they've got a child or a member of the family with special needs, or perhaps they've got special needs themselves, so they're on benefits, they get hit with this automatic no. We're not even going to sort of we're not even going to process your application. And I know that's been they shouldn't do that. Morally and probably legally now they shouldn't do that, but it still goes on. Landlords have still got this. They'll still say to their letting agents off the record, we don't accept anybody that's on benefits. So, and it's a massive issue because essentially people are getting tarnished with the same brush as let's just say a sector of the population that choose to be on benefits rather than having to be on benefits. So that's another massive issue that I see. That's something we're trying to change in the in our business, in our property management business, is that we'd be more than happy to accept people that are on disability living allowance or that are on benefits because of their either physical disabilities or mental concerns, that sort of stuff. So and
I can hear people listening going, yeah, but the law says you can't discriminate against them and you have to. And I think what I'm seeing, and probably what you're seeing too, Sam, is that people are going, yeah, it's fine, you can come and view the property, but they're never going to actually choose that person when we've got so much choice of tenants at the moment. They're never going to be the one for the list. Yeah,
that's it. And you sort of see it from a landlord's point of view, and they just kind of go, they see it as a risk because they don't understand it, and because they've heard that people being on benefits is a bad thing. They don't understand it, and it's almost this, and I think that's where, for some of the great work that you're doing, Lisa, with kind of educating people and trying to kind of get this message out there, actually, that you can't, don't take everything on face value. Do a bit of research. It's it always comes back to that argument, I think, with is it safer to have a job? Because at the end of the day, someone that's a family that kind of moves into your property where you've got one main income earner, if they lose their income, if they lose their job because the company decides one day actually that that you're no longer needed, is that more or less of a risk than somebody that's claiming benefits and will probably be claiming benefits for the rest of their life? It's government, but the money's coming from the government. It's almost like government-backed income, and I know that's a term that gets thrown around a lot, which I'm not particularly keen on, but
you're right. It is, and I think we're also, we can bobble around in our naivety and think we're all fine and we're all perfect, but actually we're all one step in front of a bus away from ending up in a wheelchair or something horrible happening to us. Do you know what I mean? So it's it's very easy to kind of assume there's a them and us about people with disabilities, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And just some of the issues I've sort of seen is definitely from a finance, so looking at it from a getting lending point of view, is that we've obviously declared to our lenders that our properties are rented to supported living providers, so the percentage point goes up a little bit. It's not a massive amount, but it has gone up more than if it was just a standard kind of buy-to-let mortgage. So there's issues around finance, and especially I think on bigger schemes, it can be difficult to, when we've been doing research on certain things, it can be difficult to find the lenders. There's less lenders that are certainly operating in the finance market at that level. And I know we've had conversations about that in the past.
It's still a frustration to me that we haven't cracked this one yet.
But we'll get there. Eventually we'll crack them. We'll get there.
But it is really frustrating, isn't it? Because it is still an issue. It's still more expensive, and I still I still think that underwriters don't get supported living properly, and that's why they're seeing
exactly. It just seemed crazy. And then the other one is the only other one I would ask landlords, and providers to be careful of is insurance. I work quite closely with an insurance broker who comes across issues all the time where people have told their insurance broker they're running supported living. But it's just a massive umbrella for lots of different areas, So, for example, your insurance underwriter or the insurance company might think you're, let's say you're housing, people with special needs, for example, when actually, the company that you've rented it to has put like asylum seekers in. Well, they're two completely different risk profiles, So you need to be very specific with your broker as to who the end client's going to be. Now, that might be that, when you're talking to your supported living provider, who's actually, or the housing association that you've rented your property to, you need to ask them the question, well, what's the tenant type? What's the tenant type that you're actually going to be putting in this property? So I can then report that to my insurance company to make sure we've got the right insurance in place. So
because like you say, within that supported living umbrella, the insurance underwriters see different groups as different risks, don't they? Some of them are seen as much higher risk. So it's very, very important. And make sure that you actually have in writing, they know that you've got supported living tenants in there. So that, someone hasn't just tried to swing you a cheaper policy because it's just a normal buy-to-let policy, and then you're not going to be in having conversations with providers. How are you finding, because one of the things I often stress to people is that this isn't a quick process, letting properties to supported living providers. We get some people who join the network and then go, it's not all magically all come together in 3 weeks, and they give notice and leave, and you're just like, whoa. I've never thought it's going to happen that quickly. It takes time, doesn't it? What's your experience been with building relationships with providers?
Absolutely. Slow, I think, is the is the term. So as you say, you think, because you speak to providers, or when I speak to providers, they say, oh yeah, we've got a massive need for this. There's just not enough property. There's not enough, out there, to kind of fulfill. I was on a call with a provider recently, and he actually pulled up the list from the council, like the referrals list from the council. And he said, I've got 40 referrals, people waiting for accommodation. Great, okay, well let's work on it, and then so I went off and found some what I thought were suitable properties, kind of go back to them, and then sometimes it's a bit like tumbleweed because and I think it's because I think there's a few things to it. Part of it is relationship building. Part of it is that they need to know that you'll be there for the kind of the long term, and you're not kind of one of these kind of cowboy fly by night kind of providers. You're going to be providing good quality homes, and that's built kind of through relationships. I think part of it is that, and the other part of it is that a lot of these companies are busy already. They're busy providing the care for the clients they've already got. They haven't. They're not like us property investors where we're kind of we spend our days and time looking at property. That's kind of our field. So I think it just takes some time to react to things, really. And so yeah, certainly it's not a get rich quick scheme by any stretch of the imagination. I know there's a lot of noise about supported living and stuff on on socials and about at the moment, and it is I think it is a fantastic market to get into, but you need to go into it with the right intentions. I think you need to go into it with you actually want to provide good quality homes for people that need them, not right, how can I generate the maximum amount of profit from this property. That's not that will probably come with time. If you focus on the first bit first, on the providing good quality homes for people, the profits will follow, but that's not certainly how it should be approached, I don't think.
The forefront of your thinking. It's got to work for everybody involved, hasn't it? It's not just
absolutely
the investor at the top sort of taking that off. And I think if you're one of the providers who are listening to this, just listen to that perspective from Sam's point of view. We get that providers are super busy, and unless they're a really big organization where they've got business development teams who are actually out finding the properties, then actually most providers, smaller providers, are running it, dealing with shift challenges, dealing with staff being off sick, crises that are going on within the care service. So actually that email from you about that property that you found is probably not the most urgent email in their inbox. But at the same time, that property is not going to be there in a month's time when you come back to it. So you've got to, if you are serious about growing property, put some priority into the property investor relationships too. It's a challenge, isn't it? I think they're stretched very thinly, a lot of people running care companies at the moment.
And it's you pick up a good point there about aligning when you've got a client that's suitable for a property, and then when a suitable property comes along, you can almost guarantee they don't come along at the same time. No. It's always this kind of thing. You've got too many properties and not enough providers, or it's the other way around. Providers are shouting for property, but you just can't find something that's suitable for that client. So it's and I think with that, it's all about from my point of view, I'm trying to pipeline both at the same time, and I think the more you can have in both sides of the pipeline, then the more chance you've got of something kind of working and kind of coming together. It's a bit like from a property investor's point of view, it's a bit like the whole thing. What comes first? Does the property deal come first, or does the money come first? From an investor point of view, and the answer is you've got to do both. You've got to do both at the same time. So this is the same with, like I say, with this is you've got to be building the relationships with the providers, as well as building the relationships with the landlords, the investors at the same time, to be able to bring the two together, hopefully at the right point. So
and that's the challenge, isn't it, for everybody? It's trying to get that all lined up. Sam, thank you so much. That's been really, really helpful. We'll put your contact details in the show notes, so if people want to get in touch with you, they can find you there. And thank you.
No problem at all. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks. Bye.